Well, hello again, Cabalis. This is Chris, and I'm coming to you today with a list that I have wanted to do for quite a while. This list is, I'll warn you, kind of dark. These are my top 5 morbidly dark themes in games that make me laugh. Get ready. City of Horror. Well, let's kick it off with a game that we've talked about somewhat. We kind of like this game around here. I don't think it's really well known, but this game, City of Horror, is a game where you are a group of people in a town trying to survive, and we all have our own little packs that we're running with. And they're all very distinct types of characters. You got the priest, you got the policeman, you got the old lady with the walker, you've got the little kid, and they all have different strengths and weaknesses. At some point, you all end up in different buildings, but there's only a limited number of spaces, and someone is going to have to get thrown to the wolves. In this case, they are flesh-eating zombies. When I laugh during this game is when the debate comes up over who's going to be kicked out. Because at some point, people are like, this old lady with the walker is holding us up. We got to kick her out. And you feel horrible. Everybody's just ragging on you for getting rid of this poor old lady or this poor kid that's just, they're just holding you back from surviving. And it's absurd that this is what's happening in this game. I mean, it's a horrible concept, but it's just humorous that thing actually exists in this game. Really like City of Horror. The gameplay is fun too. So check this one out. It's ridiculous. Bloody Inn. Next up, Cabalis, we have a game about running an inn and murdering your patrons and burying them. Honestly, this game, it's such a horrible theme, and to know that it's actually based on historical events is even more dark. But I can't not laugh when I suddenly put myself into the theme of the game and the actions I am taking and realizing that I am killing one of my patrons and burying them in a coffin. I mean, the gameplay is great. It plays very much like Bruges without the board itself, but the building locations with your cards or using them as accessories or using them for fodder for your graves. The gameplay is very much like Bruges. It's really, really solid game. Engine building. But the theme, when you actually kind of break from the gameplay and immerse yourself in what you're actually doing with your actions, is so dark. You're like, I'm like the worst person in the world for doing this. It's funny. I think it's humorous how evil you are in the game, but you don't feel it until that moment where you immerse yourself in what you're actually doing in the game. Tales of the Arabian Nights. Next up on the list, this is a game that we have a lot of fun playing, especially when you're drunk. In fact, there have been events which are called Drunken Tales of the Arabian Nights. The game itself is about moving around the board. You're trying to complete certain quests for yourself, and the whole time telling this story about your experiences. It doesn't seem morbid at first glance, but when you actually start playing it, because the events that happen are so random and you're actually choosing how you're going to respond to them, whether you're going to attack them or somehow drink it or whatever, and then you hear the results of what you chose, which always is the outcome is not what you would expect. And some of them are so dark. I remember the one time I played it. I tell this story all the time. I was at a bar and I chose drink, and I was drinking my drink and someone came and knocked it out of my hand. So I threw the guy in the fire, which is totally ridiculous and horrible to do. And I have no idea who wrote that story, because they're just, I don't want to be around that person. They've got bad mojo. But honestly, the game is a lot of fun. The game is actually terrible, but the fun is in the stories that happen and how crazy they are and how nothing works Everything you try to do is just bad. Don't play this game to win. Play the game for the experience. Dark Overlord. This game is one that we have not played in quite a while, but I will say when we played it, we had a blast. Dark Overlord is a game where you are essentially goblins who are trying to convince the Goblin King that they should not be fired for failing horribly on this one mission they went on. And it's all about playing certain cards on the table that have different themes. Like we always talk about the Dreamweed, and it might be like beer or something like that, but they spawn a story that you're supposed to weave about why you didn't screw up. It was this other goblin's fault, and you're trying to pass the buck the whole game. Meanwhile, at some point, the Goblin King will say, you know what? I don't believe you. Like, you're out of here, and throw you to the wolves. It's hilarious how this game plays out. I mean, the goblins went on this horrible mission. They screwed it up. They're going to get killed if they can't pass the buck to somebody else. And there's just a lot of cool, with the cards, there's a lot of cool story seeds that you can come up with. Awesome game. Dark Overlord. Cannot get it out enough. God, I want to play it again now. Gloom. All right, Cabalis, we are going to finish this up with what I think is the quintessential morbidly themed game that always makes me laugh, and that is Gloom. Gloom is a wonderful card game where you are trying to have your family of misfits die as miserable as possible. You want them to die when they're just absolutely at their worst, and your opponents are trying to make them happier by good events happening. The game plays out like you're stacking these clear cards up that have different symbols on them that score, and the cards all have different scenarios that happen, like attacked by bees or bit by a seal, or like just ridiculous things that could not possibly happen. The whole time, though, if you play this game the way it should be played, you are telling a story about your family and the characters in the family and what's happening. And the opponents are trying to remember each other's stories. So when they play something good, it's like, oh, you got burnt or you got bit by a bunch of bees. Well, yeah, but then you went to a party and you had a really good time. And that's hurting your opponent. The fact that you're trying to kill your family at their most miserable point, I don't know what gets more morbid than this. It's a great game, great artwork, really tongue-in-cheek style, dark humor. Please, please, please check out Gloom. It is fantastic. And again, just like Dark Overlord, do not play it boring just like you're trying to score points. Tell the story. This is a wonderful game. Well, Cabalis, that is my list of top 5 morbidly themed games that make me laugh. I really hope you check them out. You have a good time being dark. If you have games that fit this theory, leave them in the comments. I'm really curious because this is just a fun style of gaming for me. So give me stuff to buy. Put them in the comments. Later.
Thanks so much, everybody. If you've enjoyed this video, please do us a giant favor by subscribing to the channel and clicking that wacky bell icon. If you're into board games, miniatures games, role-playing games, we have a bunch of audio podcasts you might enjoy. You can find those at thesecretcabal.com or on iTunes and Stitcher.